Professional wrestling isn't a lot of fun at the moment. Professional wrestling doesn't feel like professional wrestling at the moment, but that's okay, because July is right around the corner, and you know what happens in July, right? Crowds are coming back, and at least in the United States, things are going back to normal, or at least as close to normal as we can possibly get in a post-lockdown world. This is pretty much just my roundabout way of saying that this list isn't as stacked as it would be on some other years. It was the same last year as well, of course. Now, the Thunderdome, Capitol Wrestling Center, Daly's Place, the New Japan Clap crowds, we have adapted to all of them. We have gotten used to every single one of those environments. But they don't quite compare to the before times, and I personally am really looking forward to the noise returning and everything just being a little bit more enjoyable. And one last thing before I dive into this list, remember, I put this together. This is my list of the 10 best wrestling matches of 2021 so far. Yours might be entirely different, so instead of arguing about it, let's celebrate that. Throw your list down in the comments section below. We can discuss it rather than being all weird. There's no such thing as an objectively good wrestling match. It's entirely subjective, it's all opinion, so let's be chill. Anyway, I'm Andy for What Culture Wrestling, and here are the 10 best wrestling matches of 2021 so far. Number 10, Kenny Omega versus Orange Cassidy versus Pac from AEW Double or Nothing. It's been a bit disappointing, this Kenny Omega title run, in terms of not really delivering the volume of high-level singles matches we might have liked, but when you consider the recent reports on his physical condition, maybe that's not such a surprise. And it's therefore all very appropriate that, in my opinion, his best match of the year so far was a three-way. This is a tremendous execution of a very familiar format. There's definitely an element of the my turn, your turn, you wait outside the ring stuff that we always get, or we always seem to get in three-way matches, but it was also perfectly timed, calibrated, and executed that it didn't matter. Orange Cassidy's comebacks, Pac's cutoffs, and Kenny Omega's rampant dickheadery were exactly where they needed to be. And I want to give an additional shout out to Orange Cassidy, not only for his performance here, which was top tier, perhaps his best in AEW so far, but also for proving that his act still has legs. A lot of people said, you know, in the empty arena era when there was no fans, maybe this character doesn't work anymore, maybe it's just outlived its use. But the reactions he got here in Daly's Place, which was just packed out and hot all night, show definitively that that is not the case. This act has legs. Number 9, Walter versus Tommaso Ciampa from NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver Night 1. In my eyes, this is the best match to come out of the Capitol Wrestling Center so far, and it's very appropriate that it features Walter. Not only is this guy the only person seemingly in the entire company who is immune to the house style and could pretty much just do whatever the hell he wants between the ropes, but he's also the guy most capable of elevating matches beyond the things that often make the CWC a little overwhelming. Because if we're all being honest, that entire viewing experience could really do with shutting the hell up every now and then. It's very, very loud. Tommaso Ciampa himself is having a sneakily good year in the ring for NXT, and he worked a masterful strategy here, targeting Walter's hand to try and neutralize his biggest bombs, forcing the NXT UK champion to completely adapt his strategy along the way. This attention to detail, coupled with the match's stiffness and unique finish, filled the Capitol Wrestling Center with fire, thunder, and world-class selling. Number 8, Josh Alexander versus TJP from Impact Wrestling 3rd of June. It's been a real treat watching Josh Alexander slowly claw his way to best in the world conversations everywhere throughout 2021, and this is his most compelling piece of evidence. You know, it takes a very special set of wrestlers to stretch a match out for 60 minutes plus and keep it interesting from bell to bell. But TJP and Josh Alexander are exactly that, and on top of this, they also had the frigid Impact Wrestling style of empty arena wrestling to contend with as well. No company has struggled more atmosphere-wise than Impact through all of this, but that didn't matter here at all, because in any setting, this would have been a tremendous match. This is a stunning 60-minute Iron Man match that starts off slowly, as you'd expect these things to do, and gradually builds towards something spectacular. These guys are ring generals, they are true craftsmen, and they killed it here. Also, this match is free on YouTube, so Go and watch it. If you've got a spare hour, it's gonna fly by like 15 minutes, I promise. Number 7, Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair from WWE WrestleMania 37 Night 1. In an ideal world, this would have served as the perfect star-making moment for Bianca Belair to shoot into the stratosphere and become a game-changing star herself. But in order for things like that to happen, you have to rely on WWE creative, and yep. But the match itself is up there with the best of the best. It told a great story as well, with Bianca's hair as both a help and a hindrance to her, and Sasha Banks proved again why she is, in my view, WWE's female GOAT. Focusing on the hair throughout the entire match, Banks was eventually hoisted by her own petard as she was whipped gruesomely in the torso, opening up a giant welt that fed into the finish, building to the emotional climax. This was breathtaking stuff, and the only regret about it is that they haven't followed it up with quality material for Bianca since then. She's great, however, and I think in this moment she really emerged as somebody with a higher ceiling than maybe anyone else in the entire company. Number 6, Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston versus the Young Bucks from AEW Double or Nothing. And if you really want to understand the importance of a crowd to pro wrestling, if it wasn't just immediately obvious after the past year and a half or so, you gotta watch this match. Daly's place was molten. It was ridiculously loud and hot. So much so, in fact, that Jon Moxley was so amped up by the crowd's energy that during his entrance he couldn't help himself but dash across the building just to yeet a bit of furniture and get that energy out. And that energy from the crowd that was reflected in the performances really does take this match to the next level. Now, I do have to docket some points here because, you know, to be nitpicky, which is what you have to do when you're separating world-class matches, the finishing BTE triggers did look a little soft. They weren't entirely convincing. However, this told a beautiful story. The perfect, I want to swear, dickhead heels. There we go, we can get away with that one versus the rabble-rousing folk heroes. And hey, Jon Moxley did the Sandman spot with the beer as well, so I'm giving it an extra half star just for that alone. Number 5, Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa from AEW Dynamite 17th of March. This is going to go down as an important match as much as it's going to go down as a great match, because the images of Britt Baker covered in blood standing there in the ring going through pure agony in this match became iconic from the moment the plasma started leaking from her head. You know that these stills and these clips of a bloody Brit going to war are going to be replayed forever. And on top of that, it was also AEW's first ever women's main event, and a ratings hit in terms of quarter hours at that. This, to me, was the year's most satisfying plunder brawl. Fought inside the ring and out, the chops and head drops were as important as the thumbtacks and steel chairs. It brought a shocking level of barbarism, particularly for mainstream American wrestling, as Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker both fought to kill. All I want to know is, when are you going to book round 2, Tony Khan? Make it happen. Number 4, Will Ospreay versus Shingo Takagi from New Japan Pro Wrestling's New Japan Cup Finals on the 21st of March. Depending on your preferences and whether or not you watch New Japan, of course, picking the standout in-ring performer of 2021 is almost certainly a coin flip between Shingo Takagi and Will Ospreay. They have the most ridiculous resumes, and it's a real shame that Will is injured now, because it means he's not going to get the chance to add to that. Ospreay and Takagi are in the middle of conducting one of the most impressive in-ring rivalries of the past 10 years in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and think of the ground that covers. And they've had a couple of rippers this year, but I've gone for this one over Wrestling Dontaku because it was a more convincing portrayal of their stylistic parity, and on top of that, the outcome was actually in doubt. When the IWGP World Heavyweight title was on the line, you knew Ospreay was going to win. That wasn't the case here. Shingo's late show of defiance, almost terrifying Ospreay into submission, will go down as one of the year's most memorable images. And I just can't wait for Ospreay to come back so that we can finish this rivalry, or just, I don't know, write the next 20 chapters. Who cares? I'm in, either way. Number 3, Edge versus Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan from WWE WrestleMania 37 Night 2. Even though his presentation is often more chicken heel than all-conquering, dominant, demon, badass, unbeatable guy like the narrative would commonly have you believe, Roman Reigns was every bit the WWE Alpha coming out of WrestleMania 37. Now, the Daniel Bryan triple threat meme is a riot. It's a hoot, it's a laugh every single time, but adding the Mount Rushmore candidate into this match guaranteed its genius on the night. And I want to give a little shout out to Edge as well here, because the guy caught a lot of flack in the build up to WrestleMania 37. Maybe things weren't clicking character-wise, the ratings weren't there and so forth, but he came out to a thunderous reception from the crowd and he worked his ass off. I think, personally, this was one of the most impressive performances he's maybe ever entered, even though him and Bryan were both fated to be rolled up, stacked up and pinned at the same time. A great finish and a great visual. Number 2, Shingo Takagi versus Hiroshi Tanahashi from New Japan, The New Beginning in Nagoya. This is such a beautiful match, not only because it's flawlessly executed and smooth and clinical and all the other great things you expect from Tanahashi, but because everything in it serviced the story. And it was a simple story, as the best wrestling stories often are. You work to the strengths and weaknesses of the performers, and that's exactly what happened here. Shingo is faster than Tanahashi, he's more explosive, he's stronger, he's a bull. So that means that Tanahashi, who is increasingly broken down physically, has to be craftier. He's a smarter performer, and what he lacks in that explosiveness, well, he can cut you down like a surgeon. That's exactly what he did here. He attacked Shingo's leg and took the zip out of everything. He chopped him down like a tree. Sticking with this story for the duration of the entire bout and rarely wavering from him meant that the big explosive cloudburst of counters and big moves that we so often get from New Japan really felt earned. He might be a little bit older now, Tanahashi, he might not move around like he used to, but on occasion the magic is definitely still there. And at number 1, here he is again, Shingo Takagi versus Jeff Cobb from New Japan Pro Wrestling, Wrestle Kingdom 15, Night 2. You know, there's so much more to this match than big beefy boys bumping beef, but you know what, man? Big beefy boys bumping beef rules. And this was pro wrestling at its bombastic best. This was raw-boned, hyper-masculine, bomb-dropping, go-go-go pro wrestling with stiff strikes, huge bombs, mad suplexes, crazy throws, the likes of which you should only see in a video game, and it barely slowed before we got some late match limb work from Shingo, who needed to go to a different level in his game book to overcome this ridiculous monster in front of him. This thing was worked at a ridiculous clip. The bombs just kept on coming and it was erupting with volcanic machismo from start to finish. Two physical monsters tried to out-monster each other until one could monster no more, but there was some subtleties there as well. Shingo diving even deeper than usual into his bag of tricks, pulling out moves he barely uses because he knew that this monster could match him on every single physical level, was a nice layer and the kind of thing that takes this all the way to the top. Easy 5 stars in my opinion, and my match of the year so far. So that's our list, but what do you guys reckon? I'm pretty sure your list is going to be very different to mine because we all have different tastes, so sound off in the comment section below and let us know. Once you've done that, you can like, share, subscribe and ring the bell for notifications, then follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE and myself at Andy H. Murray, where you can tell me how wrong I am. Goodbye.